In Seoul, the average apartment now costs about 14 times the median annual income. In New York, that ratio is closer to 7. In Tokyo, around 8. Korea isn't slightly more expensive than other rich cities. It's roughly twice as bad. And yet, almost every Korean still wants the same thing. Not a townhouse. Not a single-family home. An apartment. Specifically, an apartment in a brand new high-rise tower with a recognizable brand name. To understand modern Korea, you have to understand why one type of building became a national obsession and what that obsession is now quietly breaking. If you fly into any Korean city for the first time, the first thing you notice is repetition. Not skyscraper variety, not historic neighborhoods threaded between modern blocks. Just identical apartment towers, 20 to 40 stories tall, planted in clusters of 5 or 10 or 20, built by a handful of major construction brands. Over 70% of all urban Koreans live in this exact format. Detached houses in much of the country are not seen as a sign of wealth. They are seen as a sign of being left behind. The single-family suburban home that defines the American middle-class dream barely exists in the Korean imagination. The dream is, and has been for 40 years, an apartment. There are two reasons, and they are deeply tied together. The first is speed. In the 1970s and 80s, Korea industrialized faster than almost any economy in modern history. Tens of millions of people moved from villages to cities in 2 decades. The government needed to house them quickly, and the cheapest, fastest answer was identical concrete towers built in clusters, supplied by a few large construction companies. The second reason is finance. As Korean savings accounts began offering very low interest rates, apartments became the only widely available wealth-building tool. Property prices kept rising, and a system called jeonse, where tenants pay a massive deposit instead of monthly rent, channeled enormous amounts of household savings into the apartment market. Apartments stopped being homes. They became the country's primary investment asset, the way stocks function in the United States. When housing becomes an investment asset rather than shelter, the consequences spread far beyond real estate. First, marriage and children become luxury goods. Young Koreans now widely accept that they cannot buy an apartment without their parents' financial help. Couples postpone marriage by years, then postpone children indefinitely. The country's collapsing birth rate is partly a housing story. Second, social class hardens around addresses. Which apartment complex you live in signals income, education, and even who your children are allowed to be friends with. Some buildings have effectively become gated communities of wealth, others holding pens of decline. Third, the entire economy becomes hostage to apartment prices. When prices rise, household debt explodes. When prices fall, banks tremble. Korean monetary and political decisions are now made under the constant shadow of the apartment market. Korea is an extreme case, but it is not a unique one. The same dynamic, where housing transforms from shelter into the dominant household asset, is now visible in much of the developed world. The United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, parts of the United States and Western Europe are all watching housing affordability collapse for younger generations. Wherever housing becomes the main savings vehicle, 3 things tend to follow. Birth rates fall, generational wealth gaps widen, politics becomes dominated by who already owns and who never will. Korea got there first and got there hardest. What looks like a uniquely Korean obsession is really an early warning system. The next 20 years of housing politics in many countries may end up looking a lot like the last 20 years of housing politics in Korea, just on a slower clock.